Welcome to GenderMeowster Podcast Network. Genderful is a talk show featuring non-binary and trans folks discussing various topics and special interests. We kindly remind our listeners that no person is a monolith of identities. All opinions are the speaker's own. This show airs live on Twitch at twitch.tv/GenderMeowster, and VODs with show notes can also be found on YouTube. So, hello everyone. My name is GenderMeowster. I'll let my guest introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Lyric. So people online most likely know me. If you've ever seen me anywhere as Neurodivergent Rebel, my pronouns are they, them, and I'm a little bit everywhere. Do you want me? Do you want more, or just that bit right there? Is that it?
You can tell us. You can tell us the places you are if you would like. That's totally fine.
Oh, well, right now I'm unfortunately in the middle of Texas, and I have been here all of my life with huge aspirations to get as far away from here as possible, as soon as possible. Thus the RV lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is wonderful that you have the chance to run away.
Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. It just keeps getting worse.
I forgot to mention that my pronouns are they, them. They're on the screen, but I know that some people will only hear this with their ears later. So, cool. Just for funsies, are there any special interests that you have that you feel like telling us as a warm-up?
Yeah.
I know we'll get into some of them as the topic of today. But...
Oh, for sure. So I'll say ones that I know aren't going to be covered later to avoid to get to spoilers. I will say I have been obsessed with dogs and everything related to dogs and dog and animal behavior since I was a very small child, which has kind of evolved into my obsession with human behavior. So, it's like those little random obsessions can become bigger obsessions that are pretty useful because my obsession with human behavior is why I've got my blog and everything else that happened today. So yay for being obsessed with things.
It's fun having intense passions about things, isn't it?
Yes. And it's like, I'm so over being told that it's like a bad thing, Yeah, sometimes it's like, I can't let things go, but it's also like my biggest strength,
I hear that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like having special interests just makes life more interesting. I know for me, like I can like hyperfixate on a thing and like then I'm like, wow, where did the last 4 hours go? Or 16 hours or whatever. It's so fun.
Time stopped. I was in a tunnel. I have no idea what century I'm in.
What even is time anyways? I don't know. So you are, in my opinion, a pretty prolific advocate for neurodivergent awareness and learning and all kinds of things. On the rare occasion I check Facebook, I almost always see one or more of your posts, and they're always insightful and wonderful.
Thank you.
Totally. Oh, it's so much fun. I'm like, yeah, look at that person being so cool. Go person. I was so thrilled when you responded to my email, seeing if you'd like to be on the show sometime.
Oh, really. I was honored. It sounded like fun, so I'm glad we get to come do this. And so far, it's been fun, so I'm excited.
When someone tells you that the tech rehearsal was fun, that's a good sign.
Oh yeah,
because I know tech can be stressful for people sometimes, but
very low key, no stress.
My wife in the chat, Trans Capybara, says I really like their Facebook posts.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad they're useful. I try to do useful or helpful or something, or sometimes I just need humor, and so then we all need a little bit more of that. So totally. Useful, helpful, brighten your day.
So it's so wonderful. I love it. So on that topic, so we're talking a bit about neurodiversity and gender fluidity today. For those who are just joining us, I'm curious, what are some of your favorite parallel play activities?
Oh, so are we talking about now as adults? Because I think we should always continue to play, and that never stops.
Totally.
Okay, I was like, are we talking about adults or young people?
I'm talking
so many options there.
As an adult, personally,
as an
yeah.
adult. Yeah. Well, like my partner and I, we're both neurodivergent and both are people that tend to hyperfixate on things. So being able to like one of us will be studying whatever our current thing that we're into is on YouTube, and we'll be doing that. And then the other might be studying something else, and like we're sitting in the same room and we're learning about different things, but we're learning together. And then I'll stop and like, oh, I learned this really random thing about this thing, and I'll share my info bit, and we'll share it back and forth. And so we kind of like we'll do co-studying, which is like play as an adult. But then there's also things like I have my whole history where I was doing flow arts and circus arts and hula hoop
Oh,
dancing and
that's so
fire
cool.
spinning. And so those are fun things that you can do next to or with someone that they may be doing a totally different flow art, but we're all jamming and listening to the same music and flowing together, but we're not doing exactly the same thing. We're doing what we love. Uh, I think those would be like some of my favorite things, or anything with music, like anything with music. Like
That's so
music is
rad.
my soul.
I love that. Um, some of my favorite activities. Let's see. I'm gonna write down to ask about music because there's like two threads I want to pick up there. And note taking is the soul of all ADHD based interviews. um, so my spouse is really into like computer science and like coding and all that sort of typey reformat the computer things. Yesterday she switched to the Mac, the
Uh-oh.
like the 10-year-old Mac, from Mac software to Linux.
Oh,
And
wow.
she's like, this will make it run faster. And I'm like, okay, honey. Sounds good. Um, so she likes all of those things, and I like to play video games and like solving puzzles and 100% things. I get a little focused on 100%ing things sometimes. So sometimes we'll sit on the couch and she'll be like typey on the computer making it do the things, and I'll be making the video games happen.
Nice.
But I'll like reach a foot across the couch and like put toes on her thigh, so we're touching.
Yes. We're doing it together separately.
Exactly. Exactly. It's so good.
Awesome.
It's so good that way. So what are your favorite music genres? You don't even have to pick a specific artist if it's too hard. Are there a couple of genres?
I'll listen to just about anything, really. I like a lot of old music, like, like Hendrix and Janis Joplin, and like really like stuff that is like before my time, like the Beatles. Like I don't know why, like I love it. But then also like I listen to like Lil Nas X,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I listen to everything. I listen to some country music. I'll listen to techno. It really depends on like the mood I need to be in. Like now I've realized that music is so powerful that like if I need more energy in the morning, I can put on something that has the beat that makes me want to wiggle my body and my booty, and then I'm up and I'm excited and I can use that to fuel me. And so if I realize I'm like too anxious and like got too much of this going on and I'm like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, I need to chill, then
Mm-hmm.
I'll go put on some like spa music or something
Totally.
really like down tempo chill, because it's like I know I can like use that to manipulate myself because I don't have a chill function very naturally. I have to like work really hard to achieve this state of chill that everyone else is always talking about. Like I
Yeah,
have zero chill.
I hear that.
But music helps. Music can help me find a chill.
I love that. I was telling you this before stream, but lately I read something from ADHD Alien about time and how time gets kind of warpy with
Mhm.
like the neurodivergent brain, and that one way to cope with that is listening to music. And so even today,
Yes.
in like getting ready to show up on time, I was like, I need to play music so I know how many minutes have passed, because otherwise it'll be an hour and I will have spaced out.
Yes.
Like count how many songs
Totally.
did I just hear? Okay.
Yep, each song is about 3 to 4 minutes, sometimes five, depending on the song.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yes. Rhapsody in Blue, that one's 20 minutes.
Oh
It's
wow,
so
yeah.
long. All the Rhapsodies. Maybe Rhapsodies are just
Yes.
long.
Yes, I have to get it all out. A lot of expression.
So fun. So For those who are watching, we've likely noticed a cool silver thing in your hands, but I'm sort of trying to describe it for those listening later. Can you tell us about that and then tell us about some of your favorite STEM toys?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if this is really a STEM toy or if it's a hair accessory. I've had it for a long time. Like it's like this little metal thing that twists and bends in all these different directions continuously, and you can make it into like two balls or a singular ball or like a bracelet. It does all these things.
So
You know, when
cool.
I had longer hair, I put it on top of my ponytail on my bun and I wore it in my head. And it's just a continuously in motion thing, but I've just noticed my fingers are turning black
From playing with it?
from playing with it.
That's
It's
so
really
fun.
old and really gross. But it's it's just something that I never stop, as I was saying. And then you asked about my favorite one. I was looking at the questions before, and this little wand is full
Oh
of
my
blue
gosh.
glitter and stars and moons.
It's
It's about a foot
mesmerizing.
long and totally mesmerizing. I've had this since I was in probably before I even started school, and I was like a very young person, maybe a toddler. And when the adults called it my magic dream wand, because I would just lay in bed and stim and watch the little stars fall until I fell asleep. I didn't know I was autistic, but there were signs. And I still have this thing. This is literally my favorite thing. I've had it. It's like 30 something years old. It probably came with a Disney movie. Is
Oh
was
yeah.
what I've decided. I think it came with like a Cinderella box set or something.
That's so amazing. What a great
But
toy. I love that
it's
the toy that came with the movie has lasted in your life longer than the movie.
Oh yeah, I didn't even really Cinderella wasn't really my movie. I never really even dug that one that much, but this was the best part of it. Whew.
I
And
love
it's
that.
like it's moved like all of my moves, all of my homes, everywhere I've ever lived, I have managed to hang on to this thing.
I love that so much. That's so great. Um, gosh, I'm wondering if I can come up with what my favorite STEM toy is. Right this minute, I'm playing with my little fidget thing.
Oh,
It
nice.
it lights up, but I don't usually do that on stream because I don't want to set off like if people have flashing light
Mm-hmm.
issues.
Yep.
I also really like this thing, but it's sort of vulnerable.
Ooh.
So it's like a deconstructed fidget spinner. So it's three magnetic rings that like go together, and you can play with them.
Ooh.
And there's different ways too. So like right now I've got it on middle finger and thumb, but I can also like let's see, how do I do it? There's some way. Oh yeah, so I can also just like put it on my index finger like this and like separate the two and spin it around that way.
Oh my gosh, this is awesome.
It's so fun. There's other stuff you can do too. Mirror Me in the chat says, I have destroyed my fidget pen. But
Oh,
yes,
those
oh,
are
I
good.
love fidget so much. The other thing that I really
Mm-hmm.
like is this like chewy rainbow Lego thing. I can't reach further than this right now. But
Okay.
it's silicone, so it's like chew friendly. Um, and you just like it's on a necklace, so you can wear it, but you can just like nosh on it, which like has helped me because I think there are times that I eat when I'm not hungry because I need a mouth stim. And
Oh,
so if I have
totally.
this, it's like I'm not just like putting calories in my body for no reason. I love those things. Yeah, I got one for my wife and she was like, meh, it's okay. And I'm like, really though? It's so cool. I love this thing. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm like mad, I can like chew it out. Anyway, I'm also in the process of treating a jaw thing I've got going on. So I'm trying to not chew too much right now, but
Oh yeah.
oh, it's so fun. I love it. Yeah, the spinner is a little bit quieter than this deconstructed one though. This one is a little clacky, but I love
That's
it. It's so
cool. I
fun.
like that. I want one of those. I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
that's a new thing.
It's that one is called Fingears, Fingears. Here,
Like gears.
I'll
Oh my
type it.
gosh. Okay.
I'll type it in our little Discord chat so you have a record of it after the stream ends. But yeah, oh, it's so fun. It's so fun. What other toys do you have to show us? Show and
I've
tell
got a,
time.
oh my gosh. I literally have a box of these things like right here, right now. Like I have a box
That's so great. What
of
is the purple and
things.
blue thing? Is that one of those little bubble popper guys?
Oh my gosh. I have so many of these. This is probably one of my favorite, but I wasn't going to get it out because, we're here on a stream. I didn't want it to like make noise on the microphone, but I
I hear
love
that.
these things.
Oh my gosh, it's a unicorn.
Of
Is that
course.
is that a bisexual unicorn?
No, I think it would supposed to be pink too. It's only purple and blue.
Gotcha. It's so nice.
But it can be. I don't know. I didn't ask though. I mean, unicorn. I mean, yeah, probably. I don't know.
I love that so much.
All the things.
All the wonderful things. So Ninja Wolf has a question. I myself am neurodiverse and have my own experience. What's your experience? And I think we're gonna dig into that, but I just wanted to acknowledge that Ninja Wolf is asking about it because, that's fun. So I'm going to shuffle the questions by about three, and I'm gonna jump to what was it like growing up queer in the Bible Belt?
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Before we get into the hyperlexia and how has your gender evolved over time, because I think that's the most relevant to Ninja Wolf's question that I have here. So we'll do that one, and then we'll talk about like growing up queer in the Bible Belt, but also maybe growing up hyperlexic. I don't know if that's a word in the Bible Belt and in general, and what sort of those experiences were like. Yeah.
Yeah. So Texas is, I mean, if you've seen the news lately, Texas is a very backwards kind of a place,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. And that's it's better than it used to be. So that's the sad thing, is like it's still a really backwards place even now, but it used to be worse. When I was growing up, it was a lot worse. You go to like, even though my mother specifically was not someone who was bigoted against queer people, everyone in the community is, so that doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like I grew up in a hair salon because my mom's a hairstylist. It's like one of the only safe places in Texas, maybe, is hair
Yeah.
salons. There's
Is
not
that why
very
your hair is
many.
always so fabulous? You've just had style your whole
Yeah.
life?
Heavily influenced by growing up in a hair salon. It's like I had gay men teaching me how to do my makeup, so I like the idea that makeup would only be for women never crossed my mind,
Mm-hmm.
because it was like, well, of course not. The best person I know who does makeup is a gay man. What are you talking about? Makeup is only for women. That never like would have made sense to me, but the rest
Mm-hmm.
of the world around me was a very different place. And even though my mom was very supportive, and I never even really officially came out to her with anything because I didn't feel like I had to, because it was like a non-issue, with my family. But like she was still like a born again Christian. So she was still trying to force me to go to church,
Mm.
because church is a very big central thing around here. Like if you don't send your kids to church, you're a bad parent. You don't go to church, you're bad, whatever, all of that. And then church is also like very big on, I feel like here a lot of people go to church and it's about showing off a lot of times, like put on your Sunday best, get dressed up really nice, uh all of those things that I really just don't like doing anyway in general. Like I don't like want to dress up overly formally and do all of that thing and be someone I'm completely not. And there's this expectation that have to be someone you're not to go into those spaces. And even just having that message that from other people around you, that who you are is disgusting or wrong or you're a sin, or people like say that thing, oh, love the sinner, hate the sin, which is like, you don't understand, this is like part of who I am. You can't say that, it doesn't make sense. It's like with being autistic, like it's part of, you can't say, oh, I hate this autism, because it's like, well, then you hate me, because it's like
Right.
things I can't separate out of my identity.
Yeah.
Which is, it's hard. And then it just becomes the thing where like all of my um support for the most part comes from online, because people around me here, like in the physical world, don't get it really. There's very few
Yeah.
like places. And then being neurodivergent, like I've got so much social anxiety, I don't like to go into public spaces anyway. And now that COVID's happened and we've all been isolating for over a year, like I can't even imagine going back into society and like mingling with people ever again to go
Mm-hmm.
back in public. But I really want to leave Texas because I don't feel like I am wanted here, by a lot of people. I don't feel safe here. I know that being someone who, looks and presents the way I did in high school, it was safer for me to come out. And so I was out of the closet, starting from like middle school. And a
Mhm.
lot of people just mostly thought I was doing it for attention back then. But my guy friends, they didn't come out of the closet at all. They
Yeah.
absolutely did not, because it was not safe. And it was like people that I would have been a safe person for them, but they didn't even feel safe telling me. And it was like, whoa, we were really close friends. And I find this out like so many years later about you. And it was like, I would have cheered you on. I would have been like, yeah, that's awesome, but there's so much fear
Can
because
I
you can't be
can I
safe
ask you
here.
what you came out as in high school? I know I've come out many times as many
Oh,
different identities, so I'm curious, where did you start and like what's your coming out progression?
oh yeah, there's definitely progression, because one thing is like having the language as you understand gender
Mhm.
identity and sexual orientation, you start to like, oh, more there's more accurate terms. Initially, I came out as bisexual. That was like the first time I came out, and that was in middle school. And I remember even like I identified as bisexual for a while. Then I was like, oh, maybe I'm just a lesbian. Maybe I'm bisexual. And I went back and forth with lesbian and bisexual for a while. But even like when I entered the workforce, like I still had a boss who was a lesbian who was like, bisexual people don't exist. You're just a horny nymphomaniac pervert that wants to hump anything with legs.
Yeah, biphobia is terrible. I'm sorry that happened
It's
to you.
and it's like that's Texas.
That
That's
is
part of that
Texas.
experience.
Yeah.
And so that then I came out, um, as non-binary much later, as an adult. But before that, I came out as pansexual because I was like, oh, this just I felt like it just fit me a little better in my experience.
Mhm.
And then, I didn't come out as non-binary uh, officially and gender fluid until during the lockdown, because everything was getting so bad. And it was like I saw the misinformation out there, and I was like, well, I can't say anything about any of the misinformation without outing myself. And I was like, I guess it's time to just like put it all out there, and so like I came out and started explaining my non-binary experience, last year. But even before that, goodness, for years before even ever coming out non-binary, my pronouns on Facebook had been changed to they them. I just did it
Mhm.
and didn't mention it to anybody.
Yeah.
But it was like, am I really ready to talk about this with the world? Because once I put it out there, it's like this, it's one of those things where it's like you're constantly going to be talking about it. You
Mhm.
can't put that back in the bag, just like telling everyone you're autistic. It's like I
Mhm.
can't put that cat back in the bag. People know. And it's like it leaves you a little bit vulnerable to make that choice, especially online.
Yeah, totally. Well, and now you've got like autistic splashed in your username that you use everywhere, which is so great. I love that so much. And I have gender in my name, so there's that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
so
it's
fun.
like, oh, am I ruining my chance for employment for the rest of my life? You know?
I hear that. I can tell you, as someone who's living in the Pacific Northwest, there are parts of the country that are easier to live in, where people are cool with the queers and the neurodivergent people. Just,
Well,
just to put some hope in your little heart. There's nice places out here. You just have to move to them.
I just got to get out of Texas.
Yeah.
Road
um,
trip.
totally. So jumping back to you talking about going to church, it was occurring to me that getting ready for church and putting on your quote unquote Sunday best, it sounds like there's a combination of like masking to appear neurotypical and masking gender identity to appear cis. There's there's multiple layers of masking and sort of uh, attempting to pass or something that go on with that preparation.
Oh, totally. It's like you're expected to, one, put on the little frilly dresses, which I almost never like. And then two, uh, if you like, I was, especially like in middle school, I was like a little goth kid. So it's
Oh, of
like you want
course
to
you
take
were.
me out of my ripped jeans and my black outfits and my black lipstick and make me dress up like a Barbie doll. This was so not me. So it's like I couldn't be myself at all,
You know,
you know.
I remember getting ready for choir concerts, and that was the only time I'd ever put on makeup. And like the dress code for the choir concerts was everyone wore dresses because I was in like a women's only choir. And so it was so weird. It was like the only dress I owned was for choir. The only makeup I owned was to get ready for choir concerts. And honestly, to me, it always felt like drag getting ready for choir concerts.
Well, see, I always only liked the really like really out there over the top makeup, usually like literally
Yeah.
like I look like drag queen makeup.
Yeah.
But that's like a lot of my makeup inspiration, like looking back, was like I was always inspired by drag queens and drag, and gay makeup scene was like a lot of inspiration for me. And it felt like drag putting on makeup, but it was like I kind of like drag,
Mm-hmm.
but when I realized I didn't like it anymore is when I started to realize that it was performative, it was a mask, and it wasn't me, and that people would see me for the makeup before they saw me. And then it like that kind of a realization came in and kind of made it less fun at points. There's always that
Mm-hmm.
realization, like I like the art, I like the makeup, but then if I go outside and put on makeup, everyone is going to be assuming I'm a girl constantly.
Yeah. So then you get into like, do you do some sort of like genderqueer? The specific term maybe is genderfuck, where you have like a suit on, like a masculine suit, but then like lots of makeup, and so it's just like, what is the gender that's happening here? Nobody knows. It's wonderful.
Yes. Yes. Oh, like Ruby Rose. Oh my gosh. The first time I saw that Ruby Rose video, which, that's not a safe way to bind if anyone knows the video I'm talking about, but that video just blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a gender fluid person here. And, it's someone that gets my experience. Because you feel like you're really invisible sometimes. Like I knew trans men and I knew trans women growing up, but I never knew any non-binary people. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know anyone was non-binary. I didn't know that was an option, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Can you tell us more about gender fluidity since we're here on the topic anyways?
Yeah. I think what has been important to me is realizing the fact that, and people who are gender fluid, we don't identify as having a fixed gender where it's like either one or the other. And for a lot of us, myself included, this fluidity can float between, I feel like I have these energies inside me almost that are pushing and pulling in one direction. And there are things that can kind of influence, these energies inside me. And it can range from, usually I don't really feel too feminine, but somewhat feminine I can feel, all the way to having zero feminine feelings at all, or feeling like I have no gender, or gender is no thing. Like sometimes I'm like, gender doesn't exist, don't tell me about gender, I have no gender, there is no gender, I'm like, I don't want to hear about it. And sometimes I'm like, I definitely feel this way, and it's like, it's not one way ever. And it's kind of evolved and changed throughout my life a lot of times, depending on a lot of times my situations and even my partners. I think my
Mm-hmm.
partners have a really big influence on it, which I think is really interesting. Like that
Yeah.
energy that my partner brings, like my energy kind of matches a little bit. But then when I'm on my own, like it's a totally different energy,
Mm-hmm.
which is like I kind of go back to that default neutral. And generally, the thing that I've noticed is regardless of how I feel on the inside, people are going to be really stuck with what they see me expressing on the outside. And
Yeah.
that's hard because like I want to be seen, right? I want to be
Mm-hmm.
seen. Like we all want to be seen as we really are. And I've known since I was probably about 4 or 5 years old that the rest of the world does not perceive and see me the way I perceive and see myself. And I don't think that they ever will be able to.
I hear that. I hear that. So one of the things that you're talking about here, like how people are perceiving you versus your own internal perception, um, it reminds me of sort of something that we've come up with in our Discord server that I wanted to share with people. One, because it's cool if people want to join the Discord server, but two, maybe it's something that people could use in other places of their life too. Right? The server is just sort of a learning space to find new patterns of behavior and ways of being together to take out into your life and into the world. And so, one, people have been sort of in the Twitch chat, and you have mentioned the power of having language to identify and actually say, this is who I am. And it's like a list of 10 things or 15 or 20 things instead of just like queer right? There's like all these little like more precise words, and how, you know, sort of as time goes by, we gain more understandings. And so one thing in the server that we have in our role menu channel is we have a list of identities for gender, sexuality, pronouns, including a ton of neopronouns. So if you're shopping
Oh,
around for
nice.
neopronouns and you want to like check it out, there's a list, and if your pronouns aren't there, let us know and we will add them, because it's not hard. I mean, maybe eventually we'll run out of roles. That's the only boundary I can see. I think Discord has a limit on how many roles you're allowed to have, but you know, we can figure it out. So there's that piece, but there's also getting back to you talking about gender fluidity and presentation and people reading you the way that you internally see yourself. In our selfies channel, and I don't know if people realize this, but in the channel description we talk about, you know, please feel free to post a selfie and include like the gender or genders that you would like to receive compliments as. So like when I post, I might write like non-binary and masculine compliments accepted. And then
Oh,
people can say, you look
nice.
great, or you look really handsome today. And both of those, like there's the non-binary and the masculine way to read it. And so you can post a picture of yourself in a dress and still say masculine compliments only, please. And like that's like we're just practicing that with each other and
I
saying like
love that.
expressing this is how I want to be seen, this is how I want to be like supported and loved up. So that's, yeah, that's a cool thing. I'm not trying to like promote the Discord server too hard. It's just like it's a thing that we do that I think is cool, and I haven't seen other people do that anywhere.
I think that's really cool because that is really what makes it hard. It's like if I could go out and just wear my makeup one day and just exist and have nobody say anything to me, like it would be perfect because I'm not doing it for anybody else. But then I've got something like sweetie, baby, honey, and I'm like, you know, I'm dying. I can't. It's so gross. Make it stop, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, like
It's like, no.
call me other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, like for me, I'm sure especially in the South, you hear plenty of sirs and ma'ams.
Guaranteed.
I have a whole thing about sirs and ma'ams. Like whenever I call my insurance company that's based in Texas, they're always trying to ma'am me, and I'm like, well, okay, sir isn't it either. It's actually mix or mixter, MX or MXTR. But that's hard for people, and like, you know, there I feel this pressure to be I almost want to say binary trans, like from point A to point B, because that's easier for people's brains than being non-binary
Mm-hmm.
and being like, I have this third thing over here, or this third thing over here. My gesture is now more nebulous and like a galaxy instead of one direction. And it's such a time. It's such a time.
Yeah.
Um, I've also been thinking lately about the difference between being identifying as non-binary and presenting non-binary, because I'm on testosterone, and chances are, if I continue the path that I'm on, I will look pretty traditionally masculine one day, and people will read me as he, him, instead of she, her. But I still identify as they, them,
Mm.
and it took me a long time to start HRT, like 3 or 4 years, because I was like, oh no, I'm non-binary, I'm not a trans man, what do I do? And it's like, actually, I've realized like I can I can be on testosterone because that's what my brain chemistry wants, and that's like I would really like to have the beard naturally, but also still identify as non-binary, because presentation and identity are two separate things, and it just took me a
Mm-hmm.
really long time to get there. But I'm so
Oh
glad that I
yeah.
am.
Yeah. And I think that's something that if even us as queer folks are like struggling a little bit to get, because that took me a while to get to,
Hmm.
then like how do we expect the poor straight people, the cis people, they don't understand things to get it, you know? Like
Yeah.
how do you explain this to the cis people?
I will
The
say I
eternal
have
dilemma.
a lot of hope, because the kids, like
Oh
I
yeah.
have teens right now, stepchildren, teenagers, and like I don't know, the kids make me
The
think it's all
young
gonna be all
people.
right.
That is true. Yep. I do have hope for the future generations coming up. Goodness, we are, it's not like when I was in school, that's for sure.
Speaking of when you were in school, can you tell us about hyperlexia?
Oh yes. Oh, I almost
We
forgot
got
that one.
excited and distracted, which is totally fine.
Yes, totally.
So I get for asking
Uh,
two questions at the same time.
yeah, no, that's good that we came back to it though. I'm glad we didn't miss it. So I hyperlexia is like blessing and a curse. I started teaching myself to read and speak simultaneously when I was 1.5 years old. We were just driving down the road and I start reading street signs and then reading names on the map. And the adults are just like, wait, when did this kid learn how to read? That's really weird. They're kind of freaked out. And one of my first, I think, interests and obsessions is probably words and vocabularies. Like I had grandparents who would read me bedtime stories and read me stories, and I remember they would read and follow the words, and I literally thought when I was like very tiny that learning to like read would teach me to speak, and I guess it did, so it kind of worked, but it was like I thought the books were like what gave the adults this magic speaking power. So I was like, I must learn about the books.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like totally like hooked on books in general and like audio cassette tapes and all of those things just over and over again. And so I had a very big vocabulary. Even by the time I was like 3, I'd be like, oh, well, actually, speaking in complete sentences, that very stereotypical like little professor thing. But
Where's your tweed
it,
jacket?
huh?
I'm just imagining you in a tiny tweed jacket and like
Oh,
4 years old.
oh,
The little
yeah, yeah.
professor.
Yes, like very accurate. But that's the thing is like I spoke that way, but it didn't mean I really comprehended as much as people gave me credit for. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, people thought I was wise beyond my years a lot of times, but I was also very immature in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of expectations put on me because I like started reading and speaking and having like this vocabulary at a young age that I would just do these great things and I was going to naturally do really good in school. And then I got into school and it was like completely not at
Mm-hmm.
all what anyone expected. I was a terrible student. I had bad grades. I could not sit still. I was always getting in trouble. I could not, quote, behave, according to how neurotypical public education standards were.
Mm-hmm.
But because people, was like, oh, well, this kid's really smart. This kid's reading at college level. This kid's just lazy. This kid's not applying themselves. This kid doesn't try, instead of like realizing that I was like a kid with learning disabilities who was struggling and needed a lot of
Mm-hmm.
help and had anxiety and all these things going on. It was like this kid is lazy and bad and rebellious and stubborn
Yeah.
because I was hyperlexic.
Yeah. Wow. It's interesting how people projected all of those expectations on you because of one neurodivergent skill you happen to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, like with us, neurodivergent people, we tend to have like we neurotypical say we're not well rounded in our skills, which I don't think that's a fair, assessment. We just our skill sets are kind of different and compared to neurotypicals, but like having like we can be all over the place. Like I'm either really good at something, like expert level good, or I suck at it. And there's like no in between. There is no in between. And so I don't do things I'm bad at. I just avoid it completely. I'm like, no, I'm not good at this. No, that's a hard pass. I'm not gonna do it. And that's like the number one reason I like have been anywhere near successful at anything in life is because I only do what I'm good at. I avoid everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, I'm not good at that. I don't do that.
My wife, Trans Capybara, asks, Lyric, did you also read encyclopedias for fun?
Yes, I definitely did read encyclopedias for fun, especially the dog encyclopedia. Like
Oh my
the
gosh.
I memorized all of the dogs in the dog encyclopedia, and there was a cat encyclopedia, and it had cat breeds, and I memorized all the cats in the cat encyclopedia.
Oh my gosh. That is so fun.
I am
Um,
that nerd.
my my wife tells a story about how um, Mount St. Helens had just blown up, and she's a little bit older than me. And her dad told her go get the tea, that's a vague phrase. And so one thing, at least for me with autism and ADHD, is like I parse sentences and I'm like, here's the 3 ways that could have a meaning. Here's the 3 things that could mean. And then my brain goes, which one is the most likely that they meant? And
Hmm.
so Go get the V. Yeah. So Capybara went and got the V magnet off the fridge and brought it to Dad because, like, I don't know what you want from me. And then he actually got really mad at her because what he was actually asking for is go get the V encyclopedia from your bookshelf upstairs. But there
Oh,
was like not enough words in the sentence, and then he was like mad about it. And it's like, it's you who gave insufficient information.
oh
What
yeah.
are you
Or
doing?
didn't. Yeah, no, like I have a similar story, like with my, like one of my guardians, like they said, oh, I'm gonna draw you a bath. And so I ran and grabbed a pencil and a paper. You can draw
I
me a
love that.
bath.
That's
And
so
of course
cute.
they thought I'm being a wise Alec. Like they literally think I'm being
No.
a wise Alec. They
Yeah.
yeah, and they still to this day they tell the story as if I like was making a joke. I'm like probably 4, maybe younger, 4 or 5 years old. I don't know. But it's like, no, I'm a literal thinker. And you said you were going to draw me a bath. I was going to get you a pen and paper. My grandma used to draw me stuff all the time. Why wouldn't, you're going to draw me something cool? But a bathtub, that's different. Okay, draw it for me.
It's got the little claw feet on the bottom, the bubbles.
Right?
The bubbles are the
Yeah.
most fun part to draw. Do you draw little shines on the bubbles? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. See, I was ready to have someone draw me a bath.
Yeah. Oh, that's yeah, that's a thing. So I guess that also sort of gets back to Ninja Wolf's question about what was your experience like? Like having the parsing the words not the way a neurotypical person expects is definitely one of those struggles. I can say for me, as someone who's married to a fellow autistic ADHD person, we just have so much compassion for each other when we like
Mm-hmm.
say things and don't understand each other, and there's not like the anger, like there's not that weird anger and expectation, and like we can start to notice on each other's expressions. It's either face or body language or whatever when like the overwhelm is coming. Like sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I'll send my wife to her room not because she's in trouble, but because she needs a sensory break. I'm like, go sit in the room with the blackout curtains and lay on the bed and don't do anything for a while because you need a break.
Oh, that's neurodivergent love right there.
It totally is.
Oh yeah. Or like my partner, I'm like, get that overwhelmed part, and I'm just like, we're on the bed, and I'm like, lay on top of me and squish me, no questions asked. Okay, just please squish me right now. Please just squish me.
Yes.
Okay, you know,
Yes.
having a neurodivergent partner who gets it. Yes.
It's so nice. Ew. Capybara says you're really awesome, GenderMeowster. Thanks, honey. That's my wife. She's so
Oh,
cute. She says I love how you do that for me. Oh. Um, so wholesome and cute.
it is adorable. I love it.
One of my favorite things about being a content creator is I just get to be aggressively wholesome and loving towards like trans and neurodiverse people all day. That's like my job.
Yes.
It's like aggressive wholesomeness and love.
You get to do what you want. Isn't that nice when you get to do whatever you want? I'm the
It's
boss.
it's so wonderful. I'm so grateful. Um, how did you choose the name Neurodivergent Rebel?
Oh, that one was easy, actually. That was one of the easiest things because my whole life I've been called rebellious and stubborn. Like those were two things I was called a lot,
Mm-hmm.
especially by my guardians. You rebel, you're rebellious. So I realized, oh, I'm not really rebellious. I'm just, well, maybe I am, but I maybe the neurodivergence has a bit of a impact on that. And a lot of the times it probably wasn't being rebellious, but was called rebellious for doing some neurodivergent thing. So it's kind of like, with everything else, being very inspired by queer culture and queer identity and all of those things, like reclaiming something that's been used against you, I feel is a very powerful thing we can do. And so being called a rebel my whole life, with it not being supposed to be a compliment, like with it meant to be an insult, I said, you know what, I'm going to take that and I'm going to run with it and I'm going to embrace it and reclaim that for myself and say, yeah, I'm a neurodivergent rebel. And so it's just like my way of reclaiming something that was supposed to be an insult for 29 years until I found out I was autistic.
Mm-hmm. How revolutionary is that?
It's like all of these aha moments, right? Going back over to your life after you find out you're neurodivergent, you're just like, oh,
Oh.
everything makes sense. Every memory, like has a new meaning just about now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I've said this many times, but I feel like since we're talking about neurodiversity, it's important to state that um, at least in this channel and in my spaces, we believe that self diagnosis and self identifying as neurodivergent is totally valid. It can
Mm-hmm.
be there's a lot of gatekeeping around getting formal diagnoses, and I just wanted to encourage people, like, you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait until you have thousands of dollars, until you get to the end of that 12-month waiting list to get formally diagnosed with a thing. You know, if reading those ADHD memes and using those coping tools for autistic people is helpful to you, like, do them. You can stim
Mm-hmm.
now. You don't have to wait until some other person tells you that you are who you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will agree so much because like I was autistic in the 29 years of my life leading up to being autistic. That those things definitely impacted me, whether or not I knew they were impacting me or not, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So gosh, that one person giving that confirmation was helpful, but she, you know, if she would have said no, it wouldn't have changed a thing. I still would have been autistic. They just would have told me no, you know.
Yeah. Juliet and Maddie in the chat say, let's eliminate doctors' opinions as a basis for identity.
Mm-hmm.
Hard agree.
Ooh, controversial, controversial. I'm not disagreeing either.
All right. What are some queer and neurodivergent intersections that you find fascinating?
Oh goodness. Well, I mean, all of the recent studies that keep coming out to show that there is overlap in being neurodivergent and being queer and being autistic and potentially being trans. Like
Mm-hmm.
the rest of us are like, duh, we knew this forever. Like we've known
Mm-hmm.
this. We're like, yeah, finally science is catching up. But I'm
Yeah.
so excited right now that science is catching up
Yeah.
because when I got online, when I first found out I was autistic 5 years ago, I tiptoed in and was like, oh my gosh, I've never been in a like around neurodivergent people in a group where the majority is queer. And I really
Mm-hmm.
felt like anytime I was in a neurodivergent space, the majority was queer and the straight people were now the minority in the group, the straight cis people, which that's weird. You know, we don't get that unless we go to like a pride parade or some kind of party or event.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, this is something. And then for years, everyone's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. Now they're like starting to have scientific research and like studies coming out like, look, there's a lot of them. It's like, yeah, we know there's a lot of us. And it makes me excited that now people are, we have like data to like back it up and prove like what a lot of us have been saying for years anyway. And so, like, why is science always so behind? You know, that's why it's like, yeah, let's get these doctors and these scientists and these academic gatekeepers out because they don't know what's going on with the lived experiences
Yeah.
sometimes. I'll say.
Well, I mean, one of the wonderful things about my Discord server is so many of us are trans and neurodivergent of some flavor. And so it's so fun to just be around a bunch of other trans neurodivergent people.
Yeah.
Something that I hear talked about even less is plurality, which is having
Mm-hmm.
multiple headmates in one physical body. Um, and we have like special opt-in channels for different identities, and one of those includes plurality.
Oh,
So, you know,
nice.
if there are like queer, trans, neurodivergent people who are like figuring the stuff out, like, we have a safe little spot for you to figure it out, and there's moderators around, and you're not going to get trolled, and you know, we just that's it. Like, your desire for that sort of space, that's like, that's the thing. That's what I've done with pandemic, is like make the server with a lot of help, including from Mirami. Um, oh yeah, Juliet and Maddie are clarifying together. 400 accounts, definitely more people than that.
Wow.
400
Yeah, yeah.
users, but if you
That
count all
that
the
that
headmates,
is
it's
that
more
is
than that.
true. Yeah. You can have a lot in one system.
Totally. And Mirami is clarifying, we have both the plurality channel and the questioning plurality channel. So if you're still
Oh,
figuring
that's
it out and you're
cool.
like not ready to like identify, we have just as many questioning channels as we have like insider identity, air quotes, channels. So people can figure it out. And like, I wish I had counted, but I have no idea how many little trans eggs have hatched in the server over the last year.
Oh, nice.
But it's so cool because, you know, we have this online space. And, you know, a while ago you were mentioning with pandemic and staying home, and now you don't want to go back to seeing people in real life and all of that, because it stresses you out, which I find relatable. I also wanted to share that, like, for me as a disabled person, like, when pandemic happened, my world got bigger, not smaller, because all the people that weren't online suddenly were. All the people that
Oh
were like,
yeah.
oh, I can't be bothered with learning, the internet technologies that let me connect with people online, they suddenly like took time to do it because they had nothing else to do or no other way to
Mm-hmm.
be in community. And so it just like my world got bigger, not smaller.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if people like have considered that perspective.
Oh yeah, totally. But then the other thing is like people want us to do both now, and I'm like, okay, I can't handle both. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Okay. So it looks like we have about 3 more questions. Just
awesome.
for timing, I know we just hit the 1 hour mark, so I wanted to be mindful of your time as well. I know you have things to go do.
Works for me.
Let's see. There's some sort of question here that is coming in from the Twitch chat. Sorry if you addressed this earlier. About hyperlexia, do you feel like reading is easy or does it just come fast? If someone thinks they're hyperlexic, what might they look out for? So it's sort of a clarifying question on hyperlexia.
Yeah, so reading probably came easier to me than it did for a lot of people. And then now I read really, really fast, and so fast that one of the difficulties is I do not see typos. My brain just automatically corrects them. So I cannot proofread to save my life. I'm a terrible proofreader.
Mm-hmm.
But growing up, it looked like me reading far above grade level. I was reading already to college level when when did they do that test? I think it was third grade. It was in elementary school. I was already reading, they didn't test above that. So it was like as far as they could test, like in college reading could, but the spoken comprehension was nowhere near what the writing and verbal comprehension. And something funny about this actually, what I think is really interesting is, say, for example, now I speak Spanish very poorly, but I can understand quite a bit if it's spoken to me and it's not going too fast. I'm here in Texas. A lot of people do speak Spanish, but I can read Spanish fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
I much better than I can speak Spanish. If you like, you give me Spanish instructions, I can read directions and packaging in Spanish and I can understand all of that.
That's
And
cool.
if I needed to say that or heard you saying it out loud,
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't be as easy for me to process. So it's funny because like I'm hyperlexic in every language, not just in English, which is funny. And it's more noticeable when like I've worked really hard to build up my speaking comprehension, my spoken speech to compensate. But when I was a kid, it was like the difference was vast. Where it's like I could read and write so much better than I could speak.
Mm-hmm.
Which now, I've practiced my speech so much that that's not as difficult. But speaking another language, you can definitely see it because it's like I can read most other languages pretty easily too. When I try, if I would like try to learn a language, the reading it would be easier than speaking it.
Yeah. In the Twitch chat, we're talking about how terrible our verbal memory can be. And I responded that for me, if I hear verbal instructions or if I get like a verbal to-do list, I have to like say it out loud so that I can hear myself saying it. And I sort of like loop it in my brain until I've done the thing. Otherwise, it just stops existing. It's just
I can
object
remember
permanence.
one thing at a time.
Yeah.
One thing at a time. That's it. I can't. I get everything in writing. I know I'm not going to be able to remember. Like, because it's like, what if somebody comes up to me and interrupts me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I have no idea what I was just doing.
Yeah. If I don't write it down, it stops existing within 1 minute.
Yes. Yes. Oh, this task has multiple steps. No, I'm sorry. I can't help you.
One of my mods posted a meme today that was like what people think inattentive ADHD is, and it was like this green blob, and then what it actually is, and it was this rainbow with like a list of 10 things, and then there was like another thing. One of them was green, one of them was purple, and that was like also inattentive ADHD is not reading that second thing because you looked at it and your brain went, it's too long, and you moved on. So I read like
Oh
top,
my
bottom, and then I circled back to the middle
gosh.
because the third thing kind of shamed me into feeling like, okay, I have to go read that fucking list now.
Oh my
Oh my gosh.
God. Yes, that's funny. That is totally accurate.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. Heck. So funny. It's just, it's so real. For me, when I read, if I read fast, sometimes I don't comprehend what I read. Like my eyes go over the words, but my brain
Hmm.
doesn't actually, it doesn't sink in. So with your hyperlexia, you read fast and comprehend, or you just like,
Well, it depends. Like
yeah,
if I like, because I have ADHD too, so
yeah.
if I am not like in a place where I am having trouble focusing on something, or if something is really freaking boring to me,
Mm-hmm.
I'll read it and it won't sink in. But
Mm-hmm.
if I'm interested in it, I'm not mentally exhausted and having some kind of other ADHD glitch where I can't read because sometimes I'm just too tired to read.
Mm-hmm.
Then yeah, I absorb it. Like I like will go through and like read and absorb and actually comprehend what I'm taking in.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What a cool
But
skill.
but if I'm
So,
tired or I'm overwhelmed, the skill is gone and is completely not
mm-hmm.
there, and the comprehension stops.
Yeah.
Which people expect you to have that skill. Like when you show a skill, people expect you to be able to like show it consistently.
Yeah, totally. Totally. They have that expectation. And it's like, that only works on Tuesdays and mornings.
Yeah, it's like it's after 5 and I've been talking, so the reading is turned off for the day. I already shut down
Mm-hmm.
that machine.
Yeah, totally. All right, let's see. Let's see. Okay, so I have seen on like your socials and your website and things that you are a neurodivergent consultant. I'm curious if you'll tell us a little bit about that and what kind of clients do you work with? What is it like having that job? Tell us
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, so, but up until the fall last year during COVID, I was working in an HR and business consulting firm, and we did a lot of work around organizational culture and having a people-centric mindset when you're working with businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I was developing training around neurodiversity and creating a culture that is something that embraces and fosters like support of neurodivergent people to be their best selves at work. And so I was, working in a company to develop this and starting to do some of it. And then COVID happened.
Mm-hmm.
Which, hey, shake everything up like an etch a sketch. And so in the fall, I was let go from that job. But in addition to everything else, when I was in that company, I was also the VP of marketing. So I was also like doing all of these different things and wearing so many hats because we were a small full-time team of 8. And when you are on a team that small, you have to do so many things. And when I was let go, because of COVID, we had to finally in September of 2020 do our first round of layoffs, which we tried hard not to do as a team, but we had to do it. And there's no hard feelings. And I even, worked with my previous employer a few times on a few projects since we split, and we're still friends and a lot of love. I'm actually really grateful they let me go because I never would have jumped. Otherwise, I wouldn't have left because I'm so loyal to people like that. That do me right. So I wouldn't have gone on my own. But I decided like, well, now that I'm forced on my own, I just want to do the neurodiversity piece. I don't want to do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was forced out to like sink or swim to see, can I one redesign all this training because I had designed training for them. Now I have to design
Mm-hmm.
it over for me.
Yeah.
And could I really just do this? Is this a realistic goal? And I kept looking for work for like months and months while I was like building these training and starting to take on little clients here and there. And so now it's like I've gotten to the point where it's like I've now got my tools and I've got my organizational survey built up again. It's like we can work and look at the problems and see what culture issues are there, because a lot of these things that make the workplaces better for neurodivergent people, like letting people work from home if needed, or having flexible work schedules and start times, and giving
Mm-hmm.
directions in writing as well as out loud, like all of these little
Mm-hmm.
things like neurodivergent people need, a lot of times make life better for neurotypicals too.
Yeah.
So like you change these things and it makes the workplace better for everybody.
Or they think they're
um
neurotypical, but actually.
yeah, that too, right? Because I didn't know I was autistic until I was 29. So I spent 29 years out in the world not knowing. um but just helping them look at like those problems. A lot of it revolves around looking at hiring and the recruiting process, and then just organizational culture and policies, and a lot of little things that people just don't think of because the neurotypical set up the systems, and
Uh-huh.
so we need to like have a neurodivergent eye on it to say some of this really isn't working, and they may not realize because it doesn't apply to them.
Well, in some industries, a neurodivergent neurotype is actually what works best.
Oh yeah,
Like my
totally.
wife is a software engineer, and so many like computer programmer, software engineer type people are super duper autistic. It's like the attention to detail and the way computers are is very autistic, at least to my wife, very similar to my wife's autistic brain in her experience, at least. Um, and so it's like, it's not only like accommodations because it's the right thing to do, which should be enough, but it's also accommodations because your business will thrive more if you
Mm-hmm.
incorporate all the different neurotypes and see the different perspectives. Because also your clients, your customers, some of them are going to be neurodivergent as well.
Oh yeah. And when I worked in tech, that was like it was true. Like it's the one environment where looking back, I was like, I really didn't need any accommodations to be comfortable in that environment back before I knew I was autistic when I was working in tech with a bunch of engineers at a computer company I will not name, but it was like this was it, I felt at home here in this place. And
Mm-hmm.
now I know why, because it was like, oh, software engineers and engineers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They were my people, but I'm not really the like I can do tech things, but it's more creative tech, media, art, photography kind of tech, that's a different, very different kind of tech. But it was like I still like had my people.
Yeah. Um, there's I also think about, oh my gosh, I've had this thought twice and it's run off twice. Um, Not every neurodivergent person is like equipped to teach about neurodiversity, right?
No.
Just like not every trans person is ready to educate cis het people about trans and gender identity. And so it's really
Mm-hmm.
important to have someone who like you who's a consultant who's like, I've studied this. I'm prepared for your questions that are perhaps a bit asinine, and you can pay me for my time. Like, it's so important to have that. um and so thank you for the work that you're doing in the world.
Oh,
It's very
thank you
cool.
so much. It's I think it's been an honor to be able to find something that I'm really passionate about that has like a purpose.
Hmm.
Like I think that's like the most amazing thing in my life is that I can do something that is purpose driven and actually helps people and hopefully makes people better. Workplaces are a system that because I've been working since I was like 11, I actually like understand that system, and it's like the only system that it has kind of pushed me out in a lot of ways, but not the way school and education and all these other systems were just so completely inaccessible to me growing up.
Hmm.
So it's like trying to use what I know to make that a little bit better because we have to work. We're all stuck in capitalism. We're
Hmm.
we're all stuck in this capitalist nightmare and we can't get out.
Hmm.
So we've got to make it better because it is where we are.
Yeah. A few moments ago, a friend shared in the chat, Juliet and Maddie shared that Neurotribes is a good book. The author goes into this sort of thing about techie people being autistic or autistic like. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
resource for folks to check out. I don't know who the author is. I'll have to look it up.
That's Steve Silberman.
Ooh, there you go.
I was like, I
You
know that one. I've
look at
got,
you
I've got
knowing
that one.
things. I love that.
I've got a copy of that one that Steve sent me.
That's so cool. Did Steve sign it?
Yes.
That's so
That is
sweet.
definitely a book that is going to be like traveling with me from like place to place.
Just like your
Goes me
sparkly
keep
wand.
yes, like
Yes.
I'll have neurotribes in my stimmy wand forever.
So wonderful. I love that so much. Okay, two more questions. Can you share a moment of gender euphoria?
Probably the most recent one is that cartoon filter on TikTok that will like draw you like a Disney character, and you click it back and forth and it'll flip between two very binary gender images. I will say, you know, it's always that, but it's like, oh my gosh, this is like so awesome. I think I was goofing off with it earlier today because it's like I can make me have the more air quote boy face, you know, boy face, whatever. I was like, I love this filter. I just want to sit and take pictures of myself with this filter. So embarrassing.
That's so fun though. I mean, this is always my answer, but I have my little Zoom beard on right now, which you can only see when I'm in Zoom.
It's
So
so
that's
awesome though.
so that's why when I was in the just chatting screen, I didn't have my little beard. It is so awesome, and I love it so much. And
Mm-hmm.
it's
The
just so
magic
good.
of filters and technology, right? Oh, or the red green filter on TikTok. It's the same thing where it's like you blink and it flips back and forth between the two binary genders, and it gives you like did a video of it. I was like, I had this awesome like beard. I was like, oh my gosh, look at that. I
Mhm.
have a beard. Yes. But they're always binary. That's something
Yeah,
that bothers me a little bit because it's like there's always like, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know how they would do it and not make it binary, you know?
maybe make the like outfits customizable so you can choose like if your face is more mask or femme, but you can like layer a makeup layer on top and not have the
Or
makeup attached to femme.
yes, I need a beard and some eyeliner.
I love that. That's so great. Oh my
Somebody
gosh.
invented a beard and eyeliner. That's what we need in a filter. Guyliner filter. But
Eyeliner. Yes. Capybara has a follow-up question. Does neurotribes go far enough into the undiagnosed autism traits that many women experience?
oh goodness, it's been a while since I read that. But you know what might be a good one if you're looking for specific women experience? There's one called think it's Women from Another Planet. And it's actually one that the psychologist who diagnosed me recommended when I was first diagnosed. Like they recommended autistic voices. Thank goodness when I was finding out I was autistic, because we might be in a very different place if they hadn't. But that one had a collection of stories of, I don't know, a lot of different women at different ages in their lives and at different like places, I guess, around the spectrum, you know, with
Mm-hmm.
how um, their different needs are. So that was really nice to see, and you know, being someone that's AFAB or who identifies with the woman's autistic experience, because I know a lot of men even that say I fit more with what that, you know, stereotypically is defined as women's autism,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is like we could have a whole episode just talking about the perils of gendering autism.
Oh my gosh, we sure could.
It could be an hour or more, like really easy to get into that, because I think I fit more like stereotypical like little boy autism growing up, you know.
You
It's like,
know,
what about non-binary people?
my 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 wife talks about she was realizing she was autistic, and then realized she had more of the quote unquote female autism symptoms instead of the masculine ones, and that's how she figured out she was trans.
Oh, yeah,
Like was like
true.
ABC. Oh my gosh, like Galaxy Brain goes here. It was just
Mm-hmm.
it was part of that whole process for her. Um, yeah.
Yeah, how much of the transness is autism and how much of the autism is transness? And oh no, I don't know. ah.
Yeah.
Can't separate it. I can't.
All right. Well, I know that you have things to go do in like 12 minutes, so I'm going to ask my last question and then just check if there's any more resources you wanted to share. But what would you like to make sure folks know about your perspective on gender and non-binary slash trans issues?
I want people to know more than anything, as we talked about earlier, that your relationship with your gender or anything, you know, your sexual orientation, your neurodivergence, that is your relationship. It is unique to you, and it is going to look different for every single person, and there's not a right or a wrong way to be queer or trans or non-binary or autistic or neurodivergent or anything else. I think that's like something we have a lot of pressure. Especially like with being non-binary, people are like, oh, you have that non-binary look, but it's like there really isn't a look for non-binary. Like they're like people have expectations
Mm-hmm.
that non-binary or trans is all one way, or that autistic people are all one way, or ADHDers are all one way.
Mm-hmm.
And so like for those of us who are like multiply marginalized, we have so many expectations coming from us from all directions all the time. And we need to like really try to learn to put a lot of that aside and listen to ourselves and ask like, is this something I'm really doing for me and for myself, or is this something I'm doing for the sake of other people? And that
Yeah.
like once I started like guiding, using that as kind of a guiding thing for my life, when I found out I was autistic, then it was like that question, first started as an autism question, but then it became a gender question, because I was like, oh, I'm performing femininity for other people, not myself. Oh, gender crisis. But it was like I was doing so many things in my life that were just really to make myself invisible or make myself what I thought I was supposed to be. And when I was doing that, I was really not happy. I was really miserable. My mental
Mm-hmm.
health was bad. And then your mental health is bad, your physical health goes downhill too.
Mm-hmm.
And the best thing I've done was like starting this journey to learn how to actually love myself. Because when I found out I was autistic 5 years ago, I was not in a place where I even knew how to love myself. I had a lot of compassion for other people and zero for myself. Zero.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So develop some self-compassion. A lot of us don't have self-compassion. I've met so many autistic people who are way too hard on themselves, so many neurodivergent people who are way too hard on themselves,
Mm-hmm.
trans people too. Like we're
Totally.
so dang hard on ourselves. Love yourself. That is it. Like you have to learn to have some self-compassion for yourself. Because otherwise it's a dark place to be.
Yeah. Love yourself.
Yes.
Cut yourself some slack. It's gonna be
Yes.
okay.
It is okay. Don't talk to yourself. Like don't say things to yourself in your head that you would never say to someone else. Like, are you talking to yourself ugly? Like you'd never say that to another living soul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like because I would call myself things and I would never call another person. Like, why are we meaner to ourselves than we are to other people? We shouldn't
Totally.
mean anybody,
Totally.
especially yourself.
I tweeted a reminder because honestly, it was something that I needed to hear that day. But I was like, I don't know who needs to hear this, but you don't have to have a perfectly clean house. It will never happen.
Oh yeah.
And like progress, not perfection. And don't like beat yourself up the rest of the time. Like, what's the point of having a
Yes.
clean house if you beat yourself up to get there? Like, you don't actually get to
Yeah.
be. The other thing that I told a friend recently that they found really notable was, what if everything was already okay?
Huh. Okay.
Like, what if you just existed in a state of being where everything was just already okay? Yeah, there's stuff coming up on the horizon, but what if everything was already okay?
Nice.
And that seemed pretty, I don't know, powerful for them. It doesn't mean like don't tend to your responsibilities and whatever, and it's not necessarily don't worry, which is not helpful. Like for
Oh
me as
God,
someone with
no,
anxiety, like
please.
telling me don't worry is like
The
I have no
worst.
guarantees that the things I'm worried about are not going to happen. Mer.
Yeah, don't like that is the worst thing. Or calm down.
Mm-hmm.
Like them's fighting words right there.
Yeah. But there's something different about, for me at least, the thought experiment of like, what if everything was already okay? What does
I
that look
like
like or
that.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No. This has been so fun. I could talk forever, and we need to make sure you get to dinner on time. So, thank you so much for being on the show. We have your links have been posting in the chat, but I'll make sure we say them out loud right here. So if anyone is interested in the wonderful offerings of Neurodivergent Rebel, aka Lyric, there is neurodivergentrebel.com and neurodivergentconsulting.org. And if you visit either of those websites, you can find all of Lyric's various social media outlets. I know for me, I found you through Facebook, which is cool. But you also have a couple more. Do you feel like mentioning them in this moment here?
Yeah, I'm everywhere really on social media as Neurodivergent Rebel. The only exception to that is Twitter because it was too many characters. So that is Neuro Rebel words. But I'm everywhere. I'm really easy to find. If you Google me, you can't miss me,
Yeah.
really.
Just look for the green hair and the spectacular sense of fashion.
Oh goodness, thank you.
All the genders. You're like fashion, I will have all the genders.
I will.
That's so great. I love it so much. Well, I'm going to take a moment here to guide the raid, and then we can have our little brief checkout conversation and you can get to dinner on time.
Perfection.
Hooray. Thank you so much for being my guest. Everyone in the Twitch chat has really loved seeing you, and um, yeah, it's just been such a pleasure. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. This has been fun. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Yay. Okay. Thank you so much.